Hello everyone, it's Morgana here today with another demonstration. Today I'll be painting for you this beautiful sunset scene. This is a very special video for me today as I'm introducing batch 2 from our new Davidson's Pigments collection. These are handmade watercolour paints created by myself and fellow artist Lois Davidson, and this is the second batch in our collection with the secondary colours: permanent orange, permanent yellow, Prussian blue, mineral violet deep, and spring green, which is a green of our own creation that I'm very proud of. If you are interested in looking at or purchasing any of these paints, the link to our Etsy store is below. You can also visit Lois Davidson's channel on YouTube and watch her paint this astonishingly beautiful butterfly and buddleia painting using those handmade paints. But for now I'm going to show you this beautiful seascape also using our handmade paints. To do this I'll be using 4 out of the 5 colours. I'll be using the orange, yellow, the blue and the violet. So I guess I should probably get on with it. I'm starting today with a piece of cotton paper, quarter of an imperial sheet. I've got it taped onto my board, which is set at a low angle, perhaps about 30 degrees. And as you can see, all I've done is I've taped a piece of masking tape along the lower third. This is going to be the horizon line where sea meets sky. So to begin with, I'm just wetting the paper for the sky. And I'm beginning with our beautiful sun. So I'm using a mop brush and dipping into the yellow pan. This is the permanent yellow. I'm drawing a little sun circle with this incredibly rich pigment here, and then using the brush and a little extra water to draw the colour out and streak it across this lovely wet paper to start blending it into the rest of the sky to begin our beautiful soft sunset colours. And now blending in a little of our permanent orange, using quite light paint here. This is a really highly pigmented colour, so you do need to be a little bit careful with it. I'm wanting to get some lovely midtones rather than the brights for this one. I want this to be a really soft scene. These colours are so very bright and vibrant. The temptation is to really whack them in and do a really bright painting, which of course you can do, but for me I decided to try and explore the subtler side of these secondary colours. So this is the purple, the mineral violet, which I'm adding in here. I know it's looking a wee bit streaky at the moment, but do bear with me. And just putting it on quite lightly and using the tip of the brush and some really soft light strokes to start blending in these colours. You can see we've already got these lovely, almost peachy, slightly salmony colours coming out into the sky here for this lovely soft sunset. Of course, you can use any colours or paints that you like here. Use whatever you have to hand or whatever you prefer. But we're really proud of these handmade paints, so I'm really excited to be demonstrating them for you today. But of course, for you personally, use whatever you have to hand or whatever are your favourite colours, whatever you enjoy using. And now I'm introducing a little blue. This is our Prussian blue. Really lovely, versatile colour. Really interesting blue. It goes from really rich and deep to incredibly pale and translucent with enough water. As you can see there, the colour difference is astonishing. I'm just using my big mop brush, my big wash brush, I'm getting confused already, to just spread that colour around and start to sweep it into this sunset portion of the sky here, trying to get a little bit of blending and diffusion with the paper still nice and wet, introducing those colours to one another and just getting them to blend in nicely and create those lovely soft colour transitions. And now I'm going to begin to put in some lovely thick dark clouds. This is me starting with the Prussian blue, quite dark. I've added a little bit of the violet to really sort of beef up the dark part of it. I've put on that as a base layer, getting that diffusing in beautifully, getting the softness in the edge of the clouds here. Just working our way up the paper, deciding where you want to put your clouds. Now introducing some even darker, some lovely rich paint here, which is just going to sit and sink in to our lovely soft wash. You can see I'm already getting that lovely diffusion along the edge of the clouds, which I'm just encouraging here, putting on more and more paint. The temptation, of course, is to put on even more and more and more paint, and I think I did do the clouds very thick here today, but fortunately for me, I think it also worked out really beautifully. So I'm just working my way up the page, using the mop brush again. This is a wonderful brush. This is a Escoda Ultimo synthetic mop brush. It holds an awful lot of water and an awful lot of paint, as you can see. You can use it without having to go back and dip in too often, just to create these lovely thick swathes of cloud along the paper. And now to add a little detail and texture to the clouds, I'm using a folded piece of tissue to pull a little bit of the paint out of the surface of the paper. And I'm going along the top edge of this cloud, which is closest to our sun, and then on the underneath of these clouds, which are sort of up above, but also the sun is below them, so we would get the glint of light naturally shining along the bottom of the clouds. It's important to, if you're doing this, to make sure you get the light placement right, or it might look a little bit wonky. You obviously don't have to do this if you're happy with the clouds just as they are, but for me, I really like this technique, and I think it just adds a little extra brightness and dimension to a cloudy sky. You see, I'm not doing it on every single cloud, just enough to get the general effect coming along. And you can see, unfortunately, I got so busy wrapped up in our clouds that I've quite forgot the sun. It disappeared almost entirely in that little circle of yellow there. So a little bit of tissue just scrunched up around my fingertip, pressing in, pulling out a small circle, so we've got that lovely white bright sun back again. It's easy to do if your paper's still nice and wet, which is why it's so important if you're doing a sky wash like this to really make sure you soak that paper with a bit of water first. And there we are, pulling that tape off, happy with the sky, getting rid of that excess paint and water there with a bit of tissue. Don't want it running down or creating a mess. You can see by the slight colour change that's happened there, the paint is dry. I've waited for that sky to dry, and I'm really pleased with how it's come out. So now I'm just going to start putting on a little bit of water and introducing our lovely sea here. I'm going to start with very, very light Prussian blue and a lot of water, and just oh, there's our Prussian blue. You can see how dark it is. It's a lovely rich deep colour when you use it straight from the pan, but as you can see, with enough water it just turns into this incredibly sort of soft translucent colour. Really, really nice Prussian blue. It's always been a favourite colour of mine. I know it is for many other people as well. Of course, a cerulean blue or ultramarine blue would serve you really well in this instance as well. Beautiful blues all around. And you can see I'm just working the blues around along the page. I'm leaving that left side quite pale and white in parts, partly because I'm going to pop in a cliff edge there, so I don't need any blue sea, and partly because I would like the gradient of colours to go from very pale on the left to quite dark in the sea on the right. You can see I'm just adding in some darker Prussian blue here, just careful little strokes, keeping them very fine. The further we get towards the horizon and a little thicker, the closer we get to us, to the viewer. This is our lovely vibrant sea. This is just the impression of the waves rolling in. It's a lovely simple way of doing a sea in watercolour. And I'm also leaving white a little path beneath the sun. That's of course for the light from our beautiful sunset to come in. I'm going to fill that in with a little yellow. But for now you can see I'm just working that blue colour along, getting it lovely and pale towards the left and keeping those lovely dark lines which are diffusing beautifully into our blue sea. Just really carefully using this mop brush and the permanent yellow and just filling in those parts there that I've left white, taking care not to smush it over into the green, into the sea, because of course yellow and blue make green. That's where my brain was going with that. You don't want a green sea, not today. And so this is my large wash brush again, and I'm just using it to rough in the dimensions of our little overhanging cliff top, just peeking in from this left corner there. This is rather a muddy colour. This is what I've mixed up from basically all four of those paints mixed together on my palette. Just using these flat strokes to rough in the cliff, getting some lovely shape there and lovely dimension. This is a mixture of the Prussian blue, the permanent orange, permanent yellow, and the other colour which escapes me right now. Mineral violet, that's the other one. And now I'm introducing those colours sort of one by one, not in any particular order. This is me just deciding what would make a good cliffy sort of colour, something I didn't want it to be too brown and dull, so I decided to work in a little bit of the orange and the blue for some interesting colour and texture. And you can see I'm not painting it all in, I'm leaving a little bit of dry brush there, a little bit of the pale paper peeking through. Just working those colours so they're not too blocky. I want them nice and diffused and blended. And now for extra texture, just crumpling up a piece of tissue and popping it on there, nice quick marks, quick dabs. You can see it's pulling a little paint away, not all of it, but a little, enough to make these interesting rock-like textures. And now I'm just using a smaller brush to dab on a little extra colour. Just going along the top part of this cliff, making sure I leave some of those white texture marks that we've just made. Just going to show you my palette quickly. A lovely murky greenish colour that was done from the, that's the Prussian blue and the yellow there, with a little hint of orange for extra murkiness. And I'm now using my Matthew Palmer Tree and Texture brush. It's a lovely foliage brush to just dab on this murky green and to sweep up a little on the edges of the cliff there. You can see it's created not just these little dabs of light and colour, but these lovely grass-like textures, which I'm now just going to enhance using a liner brush. Obviously you could use an actual green to paint this in, but I was enjoying so much working with this limited palette of 4 colours, I decided to mix my own to keep it basically in keeping with the other tones and colours that I've got in this sea and sky. Just popping in this extra texture here. It's a lovely trick you can do with the liner brush. This is a sword liner brush, but you can also work with a rigger or any other liner. And so often you get on these on the cliff tops these lovely plants, these lovely spiky tufts of grass, sea thrift and sea pinks, things like that. They grow wild along the coast here in the UK, and they're absolutely beautiful. Really wanted to get a little bit of texture and a little bit of beauty into this cliff edge rather than it just being a lump of rock. So now I'm using a fan brush and I'm spattering on a little of our purple, this lovely mineral violet. You can see it going on there. I'm being quite careful, a little bit cagey with it. I don't want it flinging wildly into the sea and sky. But I really want this little spatter as though of these beautiful little violet blooms coming up off this cliff edge. I'm also just dotting some little dabs of the purple along these stalks that I've created, these lovely grassy stalks, to give the impression of these lovely flowering plants as well. And now for a final touch on the cliff, the spatter of yellow. You can see how brightly that's going on. That's just giving it that final finishing touch. So often you see these beautiful yellow and purple flowers together, sort of yellow gorse and purple heather perhaps. They just work so beautifully. So spattering wildly a little bit into there, keeping it obviously in the cliffside. Gives us a lovely extra little bit of colour, makes this a very, very pretty cliff to be to be peering off of. And of course it wouldn't be a Morgana painting without a few birds flying into the horizon. So here we are. I'm just using a small round brush and that murky colour that you saw on my palette earlier. Great for birds, just need any dark colour to create a silhouette. Just put them flying there into the sunset, dabbing up a little bit if they come on too darkly. I don't want them too dark if they're very small birds, because the further away they are, the more sort of soft and misty their outline will be. So use thinner paint for your smaller birds and thicker paint for the ones that are larger and therefore closer to us, the viewer. Here we are, these are the culprits. These are the paints that I used. The permanent yellow, permanent orange, Prussian blue and mineral violet deep there. Just thought I'd show you quickly. Pretty little pans. And for those people who say pans are rubbish for doing washes and big paintings, well, we proved them wrong, didn't we? Just peeling off the tape now. Love the tape reveal. Get that lovely white border that just sort of helps to bring everything together. Ta-da! Here we are, this is the finished painting. I really hope you enjoyed watching this with me today, and I would be very interested to hear what you think of these lovely paints and how they performed. Of course, they are some very, very bright colours, the secondary colours, but I wanted to show today in this demonstration that they don't have to be as bright and fluorescent as they might perhaps look in their original form. The wonderful thing about watercolour is you can dull them down and blend them to your heart's content, and I think we've created this lovely soft tonal sunset that really really does make me smile. I really do wish I was there now looking into that sunset, but there we are. Thank you everyone for watching. Please follow the link below to the Etsy store MorgaineRoseArt if you're interested in having a look at or purchasing any of these paints you've seen today. Please also do check out Lois Davidson on YouTube, the link is there as well. And that's it from me. Thank you everyone for watching. As always, I will see you again in the next video.